Ellowyne Wilde is one of those dolls who, even if you've never owned one, you've probably heard of her because she's just had such a long and popular history. In fact, I would say she would be the Tonner doll whose sculpt has been released the most times since she was released. In front of you to help tell her story, and later I'll do a bit of a comparison of the different options available, I've arranged some of my favourite Ellowynes from my collection. They are here in chronological order. So the first one here is Case of the Blues. She was released in 2008. The first Ellowyne doll was released in 2006, so she's only a little while afterwards. This one here is Forever After. She's from 2013. She is a convention doll from them. Also from 2013 is Weeping Violets. The next one over here is Lizette Wispy Rose. She's one of Ellowyne's friends and she was released in 2015. The next one across is also an Ellowyne Wilde. She is Dream of Marigold and Cinnamon and she's also from 2015. The next one we jump to, although she doesn't have her original outfit, that is Wistful Rose and she is from 2018. And the last two are both from 2022, released by the Virtual Doll Convention. We have Divine Inspiration Ellowyne and her friend Straight and Narrow Nima, whose outfit I have changed. There are lots of reasons why Ellowyne Wilde is such a popular doll. It's hard to pinpoint exactly why, but I'll give a few reasons that I can think of. You might notice that her head is a little bit larger than some of the other 16-inch fashion dolls, and I think that that's something that gives her a fun and childlike look that collectors really appreciate. So if you're not going for something that's super realistic, Ellowyne Wilde might just be the doll for you. She also has a very expression which is very specific to her. She has a long backstory which is all about being melancholy and a little bit sad and thoughtful. And I think that carries across in her expression, makes her really easy to customize, quite a unique face, and I think it also resonates with a lot of people as an interesting story. As part of her story, every single Ellowyne doll comes with a really cute and unique story card that has a poem that is meant to be written by Ellowyne. This one goes with the Dream of Marigold and Cinnamon doll, just as an example, but there are lots of others. And again, collectors love to have things like that to go with their dolls. Here's another example. You can put it with the doll, you can display it, or you can just put it aside. But it's a really fun piece, and I think that that's something else that has been really grabbing people's attention with Ellowyne Wilde. She also has really outrageous and luxurious fashion styles. You can see some of them here. Although not quite all of my dolls are in their original costumes, generally you can see that the original runs are really lavish, really full dresses, lots of really big blingy jewelry that goes with them, and I think collectors love that. The larger heads also mean that her hair has a lot of styling options. A lot of Ellowynes come with these really detailed hairstyles and jewelry that adorns them. The very first Ellowyne Wilde was released in 2006. She was called Her Reluctant Debut, and she came out at the 3rd Annual Tonner Convention in Denver. This doll here is a Case of the Blues. She was released in 2008, but she's a really good representation of what the early Ellowyne Wildes were like. Because they didn't come out till 2006, the very first releases had their fully articulated body with the bending wrists, a bust joint there, and also the knee joints. So she was really flexible and easy to use right away. They could be purchased with rooted hair or with wigs, and all of the early ones hands, had painted faces and painted eyes, just like Case of the Blues. This is my favourite because I love her outstanding hair colour. One thing I guess I would like a bit more of in the Ellowyne Wilde line is a little bit more of these, wild colours to go with it. Whereas I think because of her melancholy theme, often the colours are a little more muted. So I love that about this one, that she's got that bright, outlandish blue hair. In about 2009, Robert Tonner introduced glass eyes into his dolls, and many of the dolls after this had painted features, but they had these inset eyes. Some people love those. I am a little bit ambivalent about them. They can look fantastic and really give that added depth to the dolls' faces, but at the same time they can look a little bit like they have been inserted into the face and aren't really part of it. So I'm not sure which I prefer. It depends doll to doll. But I do like the fact that there was a mix, even from when they were introduced, of dolls that did have glass eyes and dolls that had painted eyes. So whichever you prefer, you could go with. This is another doll who I appreciate because of her exciting hair colour. So again, as I said, it's not always, there aren't that many of them who have those special hair colours. In 2012, we met the first Ellowyne Wilde, who was produced as a resin doll. And this is a really exciting time because it made the dolls have a bit of crossover into the BJD market, so that fans of BJDs as well as fans of fashion dolls were interested. And we'll have a look at her body a little bit later, but they are surprisingly close in size to a mini Faye body, and can generally share clothes. So this is Weeping Violet, who is one of the resin dolls. Ellowyne Wilde also has 3 fashion friends, Lisette, Prudence and Amber. This is my Lisette. I don't have the others, but they're really nice companions to Ellowyne Wilde, and they have their own backstories. Often released as joint Ellowyne and a friend doll releases, so you can get matching pairs. I know this particular one came from a convention, and there was one of each of the friend dolls released in a similar outfit. Most Ellowyne Wilde dolls do have quite a pale skin tone, so one thing I love about the Dream of Marigold and Cinnamon is that she does have a darker skin tone, because we usually only see that in the Lisette dolls. She also has these wonderful henna tattoos on her body and hand. In 2018, when Robert Tonner closed the Tonner Doll Company and Wild Imagination, he did reuse the Ellowyne face mould as he converted to the Phyn and Aero Doll Company, and there are 3 dolls released under the Phyn and Aero name. This is Wistful Rose, but he also released Raffled Up and Always and Forever. This doll, don't have her in her original outfit, but she is wearing an Evangeline Ghastly outfit released at the same era and for this doll body. In 2021, the Ellowyne face mould and body were again reintroduced, this time by the Virtual Doll Convention, and again, of course, designed and styled by Robert Tonner. In 2022, we also saw the new fashion friend Nima released. These 2 are both from 2022 releases, and I love the extravagant styling of Ellowyne's dress. Nima I have redressed. I absolutely adore her hair and her earrings, and I think this dress goes beautifully on her. The other thing I love about Nima is her really rich skin tone, which is significantly darker than what we saw on Lisette or A Dream of Marigold and Cinnamon. And I think that she is perhaps an even more effective African-American doll for the series. Between the first 2 Ellowynes, that is the painted eyes and the glass eyes, there's no apparent difference other than the eyes. The face sculpt appears to be the same, and if you have a look at the bodies, obviously these 2 have different skin tones, but that just depends on the release of the doll. There are no visible differences to any sculpted parts of the body whatsoever. That's great for collectors because it means that the clothing and the shoes will be interchangeable no matter what between these 2 dolls. The other 3, of course, we're going to see more differences. So the third one, she is the resin doll, and she really is the most different, so far at least. When it comes to resin, there are a few things to be aware of. You can see this doll is visibly yellower in the face and the chest. Now, depending on how they're stored, that is a really common thing to happen to resin. So although it's a really popular material, you do have to be aware that it has its downsides. If it's in the sun, it is going to yellow like that. So this doll has most likely been displayed in the sun with her outfit covering everything except there. So she's gone a bit yellower, and there's really nothing that you can do about that when it happens. Physically speaking, you can see that she's got an extra joint. So just here above her hips, she has a joint. The other thing that is very different and that I really appreciate in this Ellowyne is that she has double jointed elbows and also double jointed knees. I'll need to lay her down to show that, but we can see that she's got this extra joint. The Resin Tyler body doesn't have this, so I really appreciate it in the Ellowyne one, and it does mean that she has a lot more posing options. She's also got extra sort of jointing there that really just allows her to twist at the thigh and the upper arm, again giving a lot of options for posing. However, if you watch me pick her up, you'll see that she's quite floppy. So again, another downside of resin is that the strings inside the body do stretch and loosen with time. So she is going to need a stand to pose. I'm not going to be able to stand her back up anymore. Her hair also is very, very heavy, and it is really pulling her head backwards. Again, because of the jointing. I've just popped her wig off there, and you can see that significant colour difference between where her wig has been sitting and where her face has been exposed to the sun. But that also shows what may be an advantage for collectors is that you can take off the back of her head and you can change her eyes if you want to. I think that's nice that if you're going to give a doll glass eyes, you may as well be able to change them, because I think that is a really important feature. So I'd actually find it quite frustrating that these dolls have glass eyes but that you can't change them out. Looking at her body shape, although it's a little bit different, it is going to be nearly identical, and clothes are going to be at least virtually interchangeable. My guess is that everything that fits one will fit the other, but possibly be just slightly better on the one it's made for. If you look at it quite closely, you can see that the bust is sitting a tiny bit higher on the resin doll, and her waistline is not quite at the same point as the other doll. That will not make any significant difference to clothing, especially because she can shift around a bit, but it might change the fit just a tiny bit. Likewise, the leg shape is not identical, but since they're usually going to be wearing either tights, which will stretch to whatever the shape is, baggier pants or a skirt, it's probably not going to make any functional difference. The next doll is also quite different. So this is the Ellowyne on the RTB 101 body. She's the only one who has a more adult proportion. All the others, you would say, are designed to look sort of like an older teenage body, whereas the RTB 101 body is really a lady's body. So it is very different. It's also quite a lot taller. If you have a look at her beside the other dolls, you will see that she is significantly taller. Her body, although much more womanly, the surprising thing is that she can generally fit most of the same doll's clothes, and that's because even though she's got breasts, they're quite realistic in their shaping. They don't stick out. They're not pointed little triangles like the Tyler breasts. They are quite shapely. So although she has them, they're not that different to the other dolls. So she is going to want longer dresses if she's wearing something long, but something that is a little bit stretchy is going to fit on either of them. That said, she is quite different, so do think about that. Her feet are not identical, but they do fit many of the same shoes. So again, ones that are made for her will be slightly better, but she will fit most other clothing. The final doll here is the VDC, so the new release of Ellowyne. And when she came out, there was a lot of talk about whether she would have the original body or whether she would have the RTB 101 body or something else. Now, this is meant to be a sort of re-release. It is not redesigned, and if you have a look at it, you can see that compared with the early body, it is all but identical. To the eye, I'm struggling to see any difference whatsoever, other than, of course, colour between these two dolls. Possibly a tiny bit more detail on the bust here, but my guess is that they have used the same moulds for those bodies, which is good because it means that the new releases are going to fit all the clothes from the original dolls. So if you have a look, deciding which Ellowyne is for you, you can see that in the end, one thing that's great about this line is no matter what the body is, the clothes are generally going to be interchangeable. Even the doll who is quite different is going to fit the majority of the other Ellowyne clothes. The thing I like about the RTB 101 doll is that she's also going to be a great fit on any clothes that have been released for Grace or from the VDC or for the RTB 101 body separately. And you can get potentially some more stylish, chic outfits, whereas the Ellowyne Wilde line is a bit more wild, a bit more out there in fashion. So depending on what you like, you may want that girl so she can, really highlight that more feminine side. Just depends what you're looking for. They're all really lovely dolls.